the deadliest inscriptions ever found in tombs. Any man who enters this tomb, I will wring his neck like a bird. He will be judged for it by the great God. That isn't a line from a horror movie. It's a real warning, carved into the tomb of an ancient Egyptian official. And honestly, it's one of the tamer ones. Forget the Hollywood special effects, the flashing lights, and the shambling mummies. The real curses, the ones etched into stone by people who genuinely believed in their power, are infinitely more terrifying. They don't just promise a quick death, they threaten fate so much worse. Today, we're digging up the most horrifying threats ever put in writing, from having your entire family line wiped from existence, to having your soul devoured by vengeful gods for all eternity. These are the deadliest inscriptions ever found. Section 1. The Curse of the Lost Legacy, the Tomb of Ankhtafi. For the ancient Egyptians, your name, your heir, your memory, that was everything. To lose it all was to be truly erased from the universe. And no one made this threat more clearly than a governor from a chaotic period in Egypt's history named Ankhtafi. Ankhtafi was a powerful man in a chaotic time, and he wasn't about to let anyone mess with his eternal rest. His tomb at El Moala contains a chillingly direct warning. It doesn't bother with monsters or spirits. Instead, it goes right for a ruler's biggest weakness. The inscription reads, "Any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to this coffin, may Heman not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir not inherit." Think about that. This wasn't aimed at some common grave robber. Ankhtafi was speaking directly to other powerful people, to future kings. He was threatening them with total political and spiritual ruin. First, divine rejection. The local god, Heman, would just ignore their sacred offerings, basically ghosting them. But the second part is the real gut punch. May his heir not inherit. In a world built on dynasty and bloodline, this was the most devastating curse you could imagine. All the power you've built, the wealth you've gathered, your plans for the future, gone. Your family's name, wiped from the history books. It's a cold, calculated political threat designed to haunt the powerful. It shows us that for the ancients, a curse wasn't just about what happens after you die, but about destroying everything you ever lived for. Section 2. The Curse of Filicide, an Anatolian tombstone. From losing your legacy, we move to something even more personal and stomach-turning, a curse that aims for your children. While the Egyptians were masters of these complex spiritual threats, other cultures were way more blunt. In ancient Anatolia, now modern-day Turkey, they didn't hide their threats in metaphors. They put the horror right up front. Across Anatolia, you can find tombstones that mix legal threats, like a massive fine paid to the city, with a curse. It was a one-two punch of grave protection. But some curses went far beyond just making the gods angry. One particularly grim example from the 2nd century lays out a truly vile fate. It essentially says, "If you dare to damage this monument, may you be forced to bury your own children." This was a devastatingly effective threat because it plays on our deepest fears. You weren't just risking your own life and soul, you were gambling with the lives of your innocent kids. This taps into that widespread ancient belief that the sins of the father will be punished in the sons. It's a punishment that goes beyond your own death, forcing you to suffer the ultimate heartbreak in your mortal life as payment for your crime. Imagine being a tomb robber reading those words. Is any amount of gold worth risking that? This inscription isn't about the afterlife or gods or judgment. It's about causing the most profound emotional pain a person can possibly experience. It's a cruel psychological weapon that shows just how far people would go to protect their final resting place. Section 3. The Curse of Utter Obliteration, the Tomb of Sarenput. Why? So, what could possibly be worse than losing your legacy or your children? How about losing everything? Your body, your name, your son's future, your home and your soul in the afterlife. For that, we go to the tomb of Sarenput I, a governor from Egypt's 12th dynasty. His tomb contains what you can only call a complete checklist for absolute annihilation. The inscription was meant to protect offerings left for a god statue inside the tomb, and it leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination. It starts with physical violence. His arm shall be cut off like that of this bull. His neck shall be twisted off like that of a bird. The imagery is brutally specific, designed to be as visceral as possible. Then, it demolishes your place in the world. His office shall not exist. The position of his son shall not exist. Next, it erases you from the earth itself. His house shall not exist. His tomb shall not exist in the necropolis. Then comes the spiritual punishment. His God shall not accept his white bread, meaning he's cut off from the divine. And then, the ultimate horror for an ancient Egyptian, his body would be burned. In a religion that believed preserving the body was essential for the afterlife, being consumed by fire was a sentence of eternal oblivion. But Saramput still wasn't done. The curse ends with a promise of eternal torment. I shall be against him as a crocodile on the water, as a serpent on earth, and as an enemy in the necropolis. There would be no escape, no peace, not in this life or the next. This isn't just a warning, it's a detailed script for a nightmare, hitting every single fear an ancient Egyptian could have. It is, without a doubt, one of the most thorough and terrifying curses ever written. Section 4. The World-Changing Curse, the Tomb of Timur. The curses we've seen so far promise personal doom. But what about a curse that could unleash hell on the entire world? For that, we leave Egypt and head to modern-day Uzbekistan, to the tomb of one of history's most ferocious conquerors, Timur, also known as Tamerlane. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Timur built a massive empire through brutal conquest, a campaign that killed an estimated 17 million people. He was a man who inspired terror, so it's maybe no surprise that his tomb was said to be protected by an equally terrifying curse. Now this is where history blurs into a truly chilling legend. One inscription on his tomb supposedly read, "When I rise from the dead, the world will tremble." But the real warning was said to be inside the casket itself. In June 1941, a team of Soviet anthropologists, acting on Stalin's orders, came to Samarkand to exhume Timur's body. Locals begged them not to, convinced a terrible curse protected the grave. The scientists, being men of reason, ignored them. On June 20th, 1941, they opened the tomb. Inside, the story goes, they found the inscription, "Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." To be clear, historians have found absolutely no proof this inscription ever existed. It's almost certainly a myth, but what happened next is what cemented this legend forever. 3 days later, on June 22, 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. An invader, arguably more terrible than Timur, had been unleashed, sparking a war that would cost tens of millions of lives. Coincidence or curse? The story gets even stranger. As the war turned against the Soviets, the superstitious Stalin supposedly ordered Timur's remains to be returned. In November 1942, Timur was reburied with full Islamic rites. Just weeks later, the Red Army won its first major victory at the Battle of Stalingrad, the turning point of the war on the Eastern Front. The story of Timur's curse is a potent reminder of the power of belief, and how a good story can make it feel like the ancient world can still shake the modern one. Section 5. The most famous curse that never was, the Tomb of Tutankhamun. And that brings us to the most famous tomb curse of all time. The one that launched 1,000 movies, books, and documentaries. The curse of King Tutankhamun. But the deadliest thing about this inscription is that it never existed. When Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the world went wild. And when Lord Carnarvon died suddenly just a few months later from an infected mosquito bite, the press went into a frenzy. Newspapers eagerly printed stories of a mythical curse, often quoting the line, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the pharaoh." The only problem is, no such sentence was ever found anywhere in Tutankhamun's tomb. So what was actually there? The closest thing to a curse was a protective spell on a magic brick in the treasury room. It read, "It is I who hinder the sand from choking the secret chamber. I am for the protection of the deceased." It was less a vengeful curse and more of a magical security system. So why did the legend of the curse become so huge? It was a perfect storm of media hype, a public obsessed with spiritualism in the 1920s, and a few eerie coincidences. Other deaths connected to the dig team were reported breathlessly, even if they happened years later from natural causes. In reality, a 2002 study showed that the people who entered the tomb lived just as long as anyone else from that time. Howard Carter himself, the main target, lived for another 17 years. The real curse of King Tut wasn't supernatural. It was a curse of hype. It proves that sometimes the most powerful inscriptions aren't the ones written in stone, but the ones we write in our own minds and in the headlines. The fear it created was real, and in that sense, it became the most successful curse of all, terrifying the world for a century without a single magical word. Is CTA, Call to Action. From erased legacies to world-changing legends, the real threats left by our ancestors show us what they truly feared. If you enjoyed digging into these deadly secrets, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell for more dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Now I have to ask, which of these inscriptions do you find the most terrifying? And when it comes to the strange events that follow the opening of these tombs, are you on the side of coincidence or curse? Let us know in the comments below. Conclusion. When you look past the myths, these ancient warnings tell us something true. The things that really scared our ancestors weren't ghosts or monsters. They were deeply human fears that we can still relate to today. The fear of being forgotten, of losing our loved ones, of seeing our life's work turn to dust. These inscriptions were a last stand against oblivion. They were desperate, angry, and sometimes brilliant attempts to make sure that their name, their body, and their story would survive. And while science can explain away a lot of the legends, the raw power of these words, reaching out across thousands of years, is undeniable. They are a chilling testament to the fact that while bodies may die and stone may crumble, the human desire for immortality is the one thing that truly never rests in peace. Thanks for watching.